All right, Trevor. So, as the expert in this field, what exactly is an apartment lease up, and what's the first thing that everybody needs to know about it?
The good question, David, because lease-up's one of those nebulous terms that have lots of different definitions. So the question is, what is an apartment lease-up? In order to actually answer that, I would say we first need to put a definition just for the sake of this conversation of let's define real quick what our team at Beachfront, defines as the lease-up process. Lease-up is the time from where the temporary certificate of occupancy has been received and we can start writing leases, or the certificate of occupancy, C of O. The C of O has been obtained by the developer, our client, and we can start writing leases and signing. Until then, it's a moving target, so you cannot guarantee a move-in date for tenants. So the lease-up, the actual time you can start signing leases that say you can move in on this date, is what we define as the lease-up time, or lease-up period. The 6 months before that, the pre-leasing, or the pre-lease-up period, is actually the first thing you would want to know how to do, or a tactic you would want to employ first. So when we're talking about a lease-up, apartment lease-up strategy, inside that apartment lease-up strategy should be the pre-leasing strategy in the 6 months before the certificate of occupancy. I know that sounds complex. Let's break it down this way. 6 months before you're going live with your apartment, get your branding, marketing strategy, sales strategy, and your team together and start thinking about how you're going to launch this building. That's how best way to define it.
That's awesome. So in the first 6 months then, or the 6 months before the actual lease-up period, it's kind of where you measure twice, 3 times, and then as soon as that 3-month period starts hitting, that's when you start cutting.
Correct. So the question we're answering is what is the duration, or how do you consider the timeline and the vernacular for a lease-up? Really, it seems silly to be discussing vernacular of a lease-up. However, there's a lot of, if you Google apartment lease-up, you get a whole bunch of different answers. So we had to define it for our team, our lease-up team, so that we could help our developers understand what it is. And that 6 months, the pre-leasing time, is part of the apartment lease-up process. It's the 6 months before. We call that T-6, T-5, T-4, 3, 2, 1, and then T0 is blast off. That's the day people can start moving in technically, or leases can start being signed. Usually we have our grand opening on T0. We have C of O. Now leases can be written and tenants can start moving in, and everything. And from T0 to T, what we call T+4, T+6 those are months. So from 4 to 6 months, that's the lease-up time. So you have 6 months of pre-leasing, ideally, and then you have 4 to 6 months of lease-up time to get to what we call stabilization, which can be anywhere from 75% to 90%, depending on how it is defined by the lender or whatever the goal is of our client developer is. And then it goes in, once it's stabilized, it's no longer in lease-up, and we switch to the operating team. We have our lease-up team, we have our operations team, and there's a handoff from the lease-up team to the operations team, who runs the building from 90% onward for the rest of our time.
Interesting. So in that pre-lease-up time, the 6 months,
pre-leasing,
how do we figure out how we want to brand the apartment? How do we know where, just who we want to market to? How do we understand our demographic? What do we do during that period of time so that we make sure that we do have a good and very successful lease-up period? So when you go to the Hollywood place, then we go to the premiere of Hollywood. So we understand that the demographic in Hollywood probably wants a little more glitz and glamour. So we do the premiere. That sounds cool. And then we make sure that the font and the logo and everything.
So we would have gotten, so the developer, we would have said we would get the demographics, because they should have studied this, the developer and GC, because building an apartment building, especially in California, is going to be a several-year process, right? Just to get permits and plan checks and all that's going to be a year or two, and then building it's another year or two. So prior to even putting your plans together, the developer should have an idea of who their target market is. Before you design the machine, we want to know who the machine's being built for, who's going to use it, right? So the developer has always had at least a pretty good idea of who their target market is. And in Los Angeles, it's all we can build right now is pretty much high end because of the construction costs, land costs, all the red tape with the city of LA to get something approved requires the developers right now to build luxury apartments. That's all we can. Because but you can't build workforce housing without losing your pants because they won't pencil out in the long run. There's no the ROIs out there, so you have to maximize the rent. Unfortunately, that's just the state we live in right at the moment. Not politics, just what it is, right? So the developer will have done some background research on the demographics and will provide that to us. And if not, we can pretty much help them. We can guide them into what the demographic research is. So sometimes we've been provided with a full market research report from a marketing company, market research company. Sometimes we've just been provided a couple bullet points of who they think their demographic is. All of which is important so we get an idea of what they're thinking and we're on the same page. The next step, once we've contracted with the developer, if it's a perfect world, say it's 6 months before building launch, is to decide what the branding is going to look like that's going to speak to your ICP, which is your ideal customer profile for the building. So what are the colors, the font, the type, what's the look, feel, voice of the brand. So we develop a brand guide. That includes the logo, colors, script, all the fonts, so that any marketing collateral we make, any digital collateral that we produce, websites, all the ILS feeds, the internet listing site feeds for the advertising of the building, all those are then normalized and branded. So it always looks, the property's brand is out there. In Los Angeles, that's very important. It's very important to have a name on your building, to name your building, and to have a theme, so to speak. It's a pride of rentership that I've experienced a lot. The 20 years I've been doing this and however many teen lease-ups we've done, I've seen a building, the name of a building, make or break it. Just whether it was just 1213 Sesame Street, Los Angeles, leases slower than, the Big Bird's Birdhouse on 123 Sesame Street, or the Big Bird Lofts. Yeah. It's just because it even gets a reaction from your side, right? So that's the thing. You want to be memorable in a way. It's very similar to launching a product, where you are launching a product and a service at the same time, because an apartment building is a product and a service, but it's never been out there before. It's never been built. It's the first time it's ever been to market, and no one's ever heard of it. So no one's going to find your website. No one knows about you unless you put your branding together, have a big launch into the digital space, big grand openings, big press releases and such, so that you could reach your target market, because there's hundreds of other buildings competing for your attention, for the attention of the same clients you are.
Like you said, it's exactly like a product launch. You check out target demographic, you're able to do a little bit of market research, and what you name the building, which is exactly, you name your company, right? Branding, all of it. It's a lot more work than you would think just on paper. If you look, what's the lease-up? How did this building become what it is now? There's a lot of steps that are taken into that.
Correct, and that's exactly why we start 6 months before the expectation of certified occupancy. That allows us to set up all the social media feeds. If you're an apartment building, you need to have all your social media channels covered and active and live. If your demographic is on those channels, whatever your demographic is, you spend the most time on that channel: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, LinkedIn. It just depends on who's looking at it. but you have to have all your channels covered. First month of the 6, T-6, is when you do your branding and brand guide. That's not a quick thing. It's a lot of iterations. Once a brand guide's created, then you create all your social media channels, and a splash page website, which is one of the keys to Lease-Up success, is creating that initial website.
And why is that? Why is the website the key, I guess?
The key to the pre-leasing.
Right.
Because the key to the Lease-Up is the on-site manager. That's a different topic.
Yeah.
The key to the Lease-Up, the pre-lease-up period, is you've now branded, created a brand guide, and now what? You can't lease yet. You can't even show the place. You probably don't even have pictures yet. So we need to create renderings, digital renderings, create virtually staged units from the floor plans. And in doing so, and we have to have a place to put those so that we can show prospective residents what it's going to look like and how it's going to feel. Here's a brand. And the most important thing, all your advertising should drive to that one small splash page website, is an interest list. The interest list is it's probably as old as property management itself, right? It's like sign up, or a wait list, but it's a little bit different. The interest list is where prospective residents who are really, really interested in living at that exact location and with your brand in mind, they've seen it, and they have, and they're interested enough to put their first name, last name, phone number, and email. And you and I both well know, it's getting someone to put all three of those things, the triad, the name, phone number, email, is like almost impossible in this world. I get my phone number out sooner than I get my email out. It's right. So, and we'll end up with an interest list of 40 to 80 people because it usually launches at month 5 or 4 on the T-5, T-4, so 4 months beforehand. So you end up, and it doesn't seem like a lot, but those are 40 to 80 highly interested residents. And what we do with that is is at T0, grand opening, we have a special interest list only tour, grand opening, just for interest list folks. And that's what we say on the website. So now you have this pool of people who are highly interested, and they get now to take a look at the units first and pick whatever unit they want first. They get we said like a 2-hour interest list only guest list. We put a security guy at the door with a clipboard and a suit, and if you're not on the interest guest list, you can't come in, even if you have a guest. We make them put they're on the guest list on their phone, and then they can go in. And we have it's catered with, and we have nice drinks, not non-alcoholic, but like Red Bull and Voss waters and just different types of appetizers of food in the waiting room or in the office area. We staff the launch with 6 to 8 people so that no one's ever standing around. Someone's always been able to tour. Someone's in the office. Someone's manning the phones. It's a production that doesn't cost very much. It seems like there's a whole bunch of money, but it's actually just doing the work to do so. And this open house happens for the interest list, happens usually the day before, or maybe even just a few hours before the grand opening open house for the rest of the those who are interested that we'd advertise openly online. Typically, the result of all this seemingly a lot of work, we'll sign 3, 5, 6 leases in that first hour. Like sign leases. They're not applications. These are applications going in. They want to sit there until they're screened and then actually get the lease out of it. And we'll get 20 applications, 15, 20, and some people really want to sign the lease right then and there because they want the unit that badly. And that's the type of people on your interest list.
Oh, that's awesome.
They exist. They do. There's really those renters out there. I've seen them. There's folks that want the best and newest of the building, and they're very discerning in that way, and that's their speed. And we cater to those folks, and God bless you all, because it makes our work a lot easier. But it's good to always to see somebody who really wants to live in the building. They'd be like, "Oh, I've been watching this for 6 months. I can't wait to like check it out." And I'm waiting for this to open it. And you hear that, and the developer hears that, our clients hear that, and they gives them a little bit of a like, okay, this was worth doing. Because in the end, it is a lot of work to build these things, and it gives our clients a feeling of accomplishment. At least that's how it's been relayed to me, and our team feels it that way when you get the feedback from residents who appreciate doing what we said. Said we'd have a private guest tour, private interest list tour, and it was going to be an event, not just 2 hours of nothing, of just special time for them. Like it's actually catered, food, people, music, that kind of thing, and they appreciate it. And then by holding our word, it builds trust, and usually, has always led to at least 3 or 4 immediate leases on that one day.
I remember being at one of them, and it didn't seem like a tour. It felt like a party. We had the taco truck,
right?
we had a taco truck. There was music. People were actually like hanging out and dancing, which was, if that's what you want to do.
The mayor was there.
The mayor was there.
The River County, right?
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. And obviously we saw from that developer, he was impressed.
So yeah, you invite the press as well. That's the other thing too. You make your grand opening. You invite the city council. It depends on the city.
Mm-hmm.
This launch was in Gardena, so it's a smaller city inside of Los Angeles area. So the mayor, city, and the city councilman and the city attorney, everybody, so they were interested. They were putting it on all their Facebook and social media feeds. So you do want to make it. It's a good point. It is more like a party because it's a brand launch, right? And it depends on your demographic. But again, back to the luxury apartments is pretty much what we can build in this epoch at the moment. So that's your younger professionals that are working and enjoy nice things and have the money to spend on it. Not like us parents who spend all of our money on our kids that wouldn't have the extra money to spend on a nice apartment. So we have to buy a house and spend money on kids, this, that, and the other. At least that's my story. But when you're in the early stages of your career, that's the demographic that we typically, young professionals, whatever that sounds like, look for the convenience of newer buildings because they don't have to worry about the appliances breaking, the plumbing, the electricity, of all the things and you go through with something that was built in the 20s and renovated 4 times. So they're very usually very successful folks, but they also enjoy 10 food trucks and a good party, right? I mean, that's play hard, work hard, play hard.
Yes. So we discussed about the brand guide, just branding the building, turning it into a product essentially, and then with the Lease-Up and the gaining the interest list. How do you do that? How do you get people to actually see our website? I mean, everybody launches some sort of Instagram and then hopes to get followers, but how do we do it?
Very good question. It's one of those questions that I think is overlooked. It is. We put a website up and an interest list link to join the interest list. I think what you're asking is, how do we drive traffic or interested parties to the interest list to even sign up, right? Like, how do we do that? Because if you just put up a website, people don't just start showing up.
Exactly.
As we know, right? There's a ton of stuff that goes into search engine optimization and things like that you can get into the weeds on. And search engine optimization is a long game.
Mm-hmm.
It's years, not months, and
we don't have
years for that, right? So you have to force the traffic and force the buzz, just like any other product launch. When you see something brand new comes out, you see it billboards, advertising, everywhere it could be. When something totally new comes out, it's there, so you can get market recognition, brand recognition in the marketplace. So that's the strategy my team takes. We've seen very successful and high ROI for our developers, is once you launch that page, that splash page, you immediately start a limited amount of Google ads because those are expensive. Google keyword searches for like luxury apartment building in Gardena, such like that for your Google ad terms, and those go to your your list, your splash page, so they can join your interest list. But that will cost you a ton and only get you a few. So we do it limitedly. What we found that really drives traffic and buzz and in a more organic and in a way I feel personally is more valuable because you're actually interacting with the brand instead of just clicking an ad, is meeting the prospective renters where they are. And that's Instagram and some Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. And those are really good at driving lead gen. Instagram is actually one of the better lead gens that we have because you can generate it from Reels and from the posts. And you can also have it from ads. So you can advertise, which is social media advertising, SMA, we call it, where you can buy ads on Instagram and at the same time post organically. And so we'll get leads filling out forms on Instagram that then connect directly to our interest list. Sometimes they don't even need to go into the splash page for the interest list. So and this is all not something that's done overnight, and it's not something that's done by one person. We have a group of people that are a part of it's a whole nother company that manages that, where we're not the management of a social media, reputation management and social media management of a brand is somebody's half-time job at an advertising agency, because they need to be creating content, researching the market, seeing what's working, seeing what's not, what's kind of engagement, replying to any kind of comments, making sure all the review sites have been claimed, Yelp, Google reviews, Yellow Pages, Facebook's claimed, Instagram's claimed, Google My Business is claimed, and all of that is populated with all your amenities, your descriptions, your data, and all of it looks harmonious to the brand. So anywhere you click and look, you find a consistency of brand and message, because people need to hear something 7 times before they hear it for the first time. So if your messaging is all over the place, you're going to have an all-over mix of applicants, which is typically not what you want when it comes to leasing velocity. You want to try to hit your ideal customer profile with your marketing dead on from the beginning. Not too hard in apartment marketing, but you want to make sure you don't just shotgun it out there. You want to define it back to what I was saying before, define your marketing strategy and demographic, and keep testing it, making sure and see who's coming in and revising it, iterating. Just because you think it's this demographic and 2 months into leasing, you find out it could be maybe it's a little more of a shift and you have to adjust your strategy. But back to your point on how do you drive traffic? So social media organic, social media advertising, paid advertising, Google AdWords, and every review site you can find claim the site, even if you don't want to. Someone's going to post a review somewhere, sometime, and if you don't claim your review site, pages like apartments.com, even on Zillow, you can your webpage on Zillow, on Yelp, and like I said, Google My Business, and even Facebook, you can have reviews. If you don't claim those, people are going to write reviews anyway.